Parashat Teitze concludes with the commandment to remember what Amalek did to us. When the Torah describes what Amalek did, it tells us, Asher karcha v'derech, v'etanev b'cha kol nechashalim acharecha, v'ata yefi agea. Amalek happened upon us, and they attacked specifically the nechashalim, the sort of people in the rear who were weak and vulnerable. V'ata yefi agea, and you were exhausted and worn out at that time. V'lo yarei Elokim, and did not fear God. Simple pshat in this last phrase, V'lo yarei Elokim, is that the Torah is telling us that Amalek acted so immorally because they lacked fear of God. Indeed, Ibn Ezra points out this phrase, V'lo yarei, shav el Amalek. It refers back to Amalek. Ibn Ezra is trying to prevent you from mistakenly thinking that V'lo yarei Elokim is the description of Bnei Israel, that Bnei Israel lacked fear of God at that time. Indeed, Ibn Ezra's view is quite compelling as the pshat of the pasuk, due to the fact that Bnei Israel are referred to throughout this pasuk in second person. Karcha, v'zanev becha, they attacked you, they came after you, you were weary. So the normal way to say that Bnei Israel lacked fear in God would be V'lo yareta Elokim, you lacked fear of God. And so the simple pshat seems to be, as Ibn Ezra says, that Amalek lacked fear of God. What exactly does it mean that they lacked fear of God? So here, if you do a search throughout Tanakh for the use of these roots, of the root yareh next to Elokim, you find that often it's used specifically to describe people who, in a general sense, are decent, God-fearing people, decent, moral people. So, for example, Yitro tells Moshe that he should choose judges who are Yirei Elokim Anshe Emet V'Sonei Betza, God-fearing people who care about truth, or men of truth, and would not take any sort of bribes or profits in exchange for corrupt ruling. So too, if we look at certain earlier stories in Tanakh, we find, for example, that Yosef, while he's still undercover as a non-Jewish leader of Egypt, tells his brothers not to fear him because Eta Elokim ani yareh. I'm a God-fearing person. He does not mean to say I'm a descendant of Yaakov, or I fear the God of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, but simply I'm a decent, God-fearing human being. With that in mind, we must assume then that Amalek's behavior here, when we say they lacked fear of God, we don't just mean in a narrow sense that they didn't fear God, but we mean more broadly that they lacked any sort of decency. Indeed, David Tzvi Hoffman explains, why do we say about Amalek V'lo yarei Elokim? Because Gam al pi nimusei ha'umot ha'avdot avodah zarah, even according to the norms of pagan nations, ein lehitnapel alam hanosei l'dar kol b'shalom, there's no reason to just descend upon some nation that's trying to pass through peacefully, travel on their way through the wilderness. And especially to normal, decent nations, even if they're pagan nations, would not specifically try to kill the weakest people who are bringing up the rear of the camp. And hence the Torah is emphasizing Amalek, lo haya yarei Elokim klal. Amalek had no fear of Amalek whatsoever. And so, in sum, it seems like the pshat of this pasuk is emphasizing that Amalek didn't fear God, meaning what they did was so despicable that it lacked any sense of decency or morality. Nevertheless, one could argue that the phrase Lo yarei Elokim is somewhat ambiguous, because yarei, the pronoun there, that he or it didn't fear God, could theoretically be made to refer to Bnei Israel, even if it's a bit of a stretch. And so then Ntziv suggests on a deeper level that maybe we should read it that way. That what's really going on here, V'lo yarei Elokim, is Kai al Yisrael. It's referring back to Bnei Israel. Shilu yareita lo hita ayefi ageh. If only you'd been more fearful of God, more respectful of God, Bnei Israel, you wouldn't have been so faint and weary in the first place to be vulnerable to this attack from Amalek. And again, the simple pshat of the pasuk does not agree with the Netziv. The simple pshat of the pasuk, V'lo yarei Elokim, refers to Amalek, but I think the Netziv is trying to tell us that when you dig at a deeper level, as Jews, when we respond to heinous attacks and heinous crimes by our enemies, there are two ways to respond. One way to respond is on the level of Pshat, to say, hey, what those people are doing, lo yarei Elokim, according to the Pshat, it's immoral, despicable, and we have to condemn it and fight against it because it's so evil and sinister. And yet at the same time, as Jews, every crisis is also an opportunity for us to seek self-improvement, to reflect on ways that we can be better. And so, whether or not Bnei Israel were serving Hashem properly, in no way excuses Amalek's heinous, sinister behavior towards them. Nevertheless, we always want to ask ourselves, in addition to condemning Amalek, and our tradition is that every year we remind ourselves through these psukim of how what Amalek did was so terrible, but in addition to that, we always want to ask ourselves, is there anything more that we could do to take away from this incident to make ourselves better as well? So at the same time that we have an eternal mitzvah of Zechirat Amalek, to remember their heinous, evil crime against us, we also try to say to ourselves, what is there that we could have done better? Maybe we should not have been in this situation in the first place, because Hashem would have protected us from this attack had we been serving Him better in the first place, rather than constantly complaining throughout the early stages of the Midbar that we need more food, more drink, that God's not providing for us, that we were better off in Egypt, etc. Shabbat Shalom.